Hey.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tiger Minor League Report podcast here at Tigers.com. I am Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Brandon Day, and Chris Brown should be along with us shortly. And you can find us. Oh, there he is right there. Chris Brown, join us. As you can find us on Apple Podcasts. We've been getting some good feedback lately. We're actually ranked 112 of all the podcasts in the country in baseball. So thank you for that. So you can find us on Spotify, wherever we listen to podcasts, over at Twitter at Tigers.com. And so we just hit 15,700 followers on Twitter. So please follow us. We're getting to 60. Not only are we getting close to 16,000 followers, folks, we're getting close to that big goal of 16.5. Why that number? If you're a detective, you should be able to figure that out pretty easy. And of course, we have to have goals. Tonight, join us at 9:30. with Sam Levowitz, who is one of the play-by-play voices of the Erie SeaWolves, alongside Greg Gagne, who is a friend of the show. And we're going to be talking some Erie baseball. As I said, a game back of Akron for first place in the Eastern League Southwest Division. And so, pardon the bad lighting in here. I'm in a hotel in Milton, Ontario, which is about an hour. I think one of your regular writers, Brandon, was talking about, let them know where to. I thought Toronto's a little closer, but I'm just about an hour outside of Toronto right now.
Oh, yeah. I might have the Ontario hookup for you after the show. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, very interesting. I don't know what that means.
It just means I know someone who could tell you where to go eat, probably.
Okay.
We're old now, and that's not as exciting as you used to sound.
Oh, all right.
Matt Wood says, I'm looking at, thank you. Well, I'm not in my normal. Yeah, Samuel, I'm in Milton, Ontario this evening. I'll be here actually till Thursday night, Friday. Actually, Thursday. I'll be here till Thursday for a work conference thing. So I'm not in my usual hoodie or wearing a cap this evening. I actually just went out to dinner in a really nice Italian place downtown. I think it was downtown Milton somewhere. It was really, really, really good. So, but yeah, so I'll be here. And so again, don't mind the crude lighting. I don't even have the special effects board or anything. It's just me and a laptop. So we're going crude style this evening. So
if we get to 16.5, we'll all upgrade our backgrounds and look more professional.
I was hoping to do that today, but instead I was painting wood and doing fourth grade field day stuff. So
it was yard day for me because it rained all weekend and the lawn was monstrous. So
There's a I'm building out. I found a bunch of banners that I bought pretty much Tigers West for the MLB draft show. So there's gonna be like a whole entire stuff for Chris's studio here soon enough. But to the MLB draft show, by the way, coming up on July 12th. Is it 12th? July 12th.
Was it?
Excuse me. Whenever the draft is, we're gonna have special guest Scott Bentley from Lockdown Tigers and Matt Broder from.
I think it's the 14th.
14th. Thank you. Woodward. We'll have also Matt Broder from Woodward Sports, who was a left-handed pitcher at Michigan. Good friend of the show, so he'll be joining us as well. So it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage. Will the Tigers choose Kim Caminiti? Might be that way.
Please don't.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah. I'd rather not.
No spin. No spin. All right. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just saying we do have a SeaWolves flag that's going to be in the background, Adam. So there's going to be a lot of other. So SeaWolves flag. I just need to get a Mud Hens flag and a Lakeland flag. But anyway, all right, let's move on. Plenty to get to. Let's start with the big league club, the Tigers. got really their asses kicked over the weekend over the Brewers. I mean, they won, because of Tarek Skubal. And also, I want to, while we're talking about Tarek Skubal's numbers this evening, I'm declaring today a no-trade Tarek Skubal discussion-free zone.
Yeah.
Right.
Why? Quite frankly, I'm sick of talking about it. That horse has been beaten to death quite extensively to the point where there's a horse's head, like Godfather style, in somebody's room. And I don't want that to happen anymore. So we're not talking about him being traded. I'm not going to even answer the question. Unless you super chat us $50, I'm not going to talk about it. Maybe I'll do that. But other than that, no.
All we'll say is that if you want Tarek Skubal, you don't have enough. You can't come get him. I want everything. I want everyone. All right, and we're done.
Yeah. What 101.7 he threw the other day? That was kind of wild.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like everybody's pointing that out because that's cool. But it's just the usual dominance there. We saw what that Brewers lineup did the first 2 games in the series, and he's like, nah, none of that. And kudos to they got some really nice catches in the outfield in that game. That was the Riley Green. I don't know if he necessarily had to dive for that, but he does. And he caught it, so that's fine. And then later he casually steals a home run, and then Vierling robs a home run later too. So that was a fun. It's annoying to lose 2 of 3 to the Brewers, but the Brewers are a good team, and you're just coming off taking 2 of 3 from the Rangers, so you'll take it, I guess. Yeah,
this is what 500 baseball looks like. Unfortunately, it's maddening, because you don't suck, so it's not like so easy to know what you're going to do. When you're bad, you're just selling and, praying for number 1 picks. And when you're really good, you're just looking for those last killer pieces. But here in the middle, could go any which way. It's just a awkward space to be in right now. Skubal's changeup, guys.
Yeah.
Is it the best changeup since Pedro Martinez? Please discuss. It's outrageously good. I know he's throwing 100, but man.
Yeah, all day we can talk about that. They go from 100, then they go the change is 88? Something like that.
84, 85. It's that thing's dastardly. It seems like it breaks like a curveball at times. You're like, come on now. But it's obviously the arm speed is there. The hitters do not pick up on it whatsoever. That's just a brutal pitch. And another example of I think we talked before about player development not even coming close to ending in the minor leagues. Tarek Skubal is a vastly different pitcher now than he was when he first came up to the big leagues.
Yep. Radically. Not, even just like the basic traits, like your spin and, style of fastball that usually is more constant once you get to the big leagues, with a good pitcher, He threw, I think he hit 2412 RPMs on that 101.7 mile per hour fastball. And that used to be like what he averaged when he was throwing 95, 96 at Erie in like 2019. It's pretty interesting how much that's changed. I also got myself in a whole heap of trouble over Casey Mize too.
I did want to bring that up before.
We might as well.
I want to bring that up. But what was interesting before we get to that though, Brandon, was his numbers at West Michigan when he was in high A Lakeland, when it was Lakeland. How tough of a league it is. He was, put up a K per 9 of 10.5. Then he goes to Erie and then was like, you know what? Screw that. 17.4 K per 9.
Yep.
That's how tough the Florida State League was at that time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I like this comparison here from Michael. Johan Santana. Like when Santana was, I remember him when he was with the Twins, when he started really hitting his prime before he got the Mets, and just watching him pitch against the Tigers, you were just like, what are you going to do? Like he had that slider off the back foot that was just, it was incredible. Just,
he was so good.
Yeah.
And then, am I crazy or didn't things like go down for him almost immediately after he threw his like 140 pitch no hitter? And I thought it was part of that was like the Mets had not thrown a no hitter until that point. That may have been the first no hitter in Mets history.
Oh, really?
I remember the Mets and then the Padres got there first a couple years ago, right? With Musgrove.
Yeah, all those great Met pitchers. You talk about Doc Gooden, you talk about Tom Seaver, and now he was the first one to throw a no hitter.
I think that's right. Yeah, and
I
also think it wasn't actually a no hitter. I think there was a ball hit on chalk down the line that they called foul, and it was replay.
Yeah. So they really wanted that no hitter for the Mets. Apparently, too much. Wanted it too much.
So, by the way, I do want to thank the Erie SeaWolves Greg just texted me earlier today. Chris and I are getting those replica championship rings sent to us. So I'm looking forward
because
I've always, like, I mean, the actual rings, literally, I have small hands, doesn't mean indicate anything, but Greg has Greg's ring takes up 2 of my fingers, like literally. It's a massive ass ring. I don't know if you guys have seen it in person, but it's like,
yeah. I saw I don't think I saw it in person, but I saw the design or whatever. Yeah, that's it's for all our hard work for the team. I guess one time we helped roll out the tarp, but no, it's awesome. It was very cool.
I mean, it's very cool of them. Thank you. But it was also, I mean, when I gave Greg our Twitter impression numbers for UPMC, the sponsorship stuff, he's like, yeah, we earned it and then some. We'll just say that. So, but all right. So, Brandon, I do want to ask you about this Casey Mize thing. So, we had an article. Colin did a great job writing an article for us. You can find it at TigersMLReport.com on Casey Mize being an opener. And so, Brandon, take it away on this, because the amount of crap you got about this was.
Oh, yeah, it's whatever. The way I phrased it, it just invited the crap. If it wasn't Twitter and I could have actually written all my thoughts out, it would have been different. But it was just basically like this doesn't look rosterable in a major league rotation anymore. And I think people thought I meant permanently, like, you need to cut him or something like that. And so people were kind of flipping out. But, these last couple starts, like, he's just got nothing. The splitter's not fooling anybody. There's just no deception there. The slider's never really been very good, and it's not as good as it was when, in 2021, where he was at least kind of getting weak contact and could throw it for a strike. He's not doing that right now. He's pretty clearly, steering everything out of the zone. And, he'll drop in that knuckle curve once in a while, which is a decent change of pace and maybe plays better because he's pretty much all high four-seamer now. But, in general, it just looks kind of grim, and I just don't know, what they can really do for him right now. And the other thing, people were kind of like, yeah, well, it's the Tommy John. And it's like, yeah, I mean, usually Tommy John, affects command, and, it takes time to get your command back. And, I could see him certainly pitching better, but the stuff is the same. I mean, the stuff is just the same stuff that it's been since he's gotten the major leagues, where, the splitter gets no whiffs. Nobody chases it. The slider's just kind of there. The four-seamer's better, but he was one of those guys who this spring we were all like, oh, wow, look at the vert on this thing. All of a sudden he really had it dialed up, and now it's just kind of, it's still better than it was, but it's just kind of planed off. And, someone asked there, like, why can't they get anything out of Manning and Mize? I'm going to leave Wences out of that for a second. Manning and Mize, and neither one of them spins the baseball. And this was the problem when Casey was drafted. You just don't know how a splitter is going to play. And I certainly wasn't the one to be like, oh, well, I know that splitter's not going to play. This is a terrible draft pick. It was probably still the right pick after all this time, but he just, if the splitter doesn't work, he just doesn't really have that much else to go to. And you would think he could develop a better gyro slider, because you don't necessarily need 2,800 RPMs to throw a good slider. But they just haven't been able to figure that out with him. And it wasn't really a bat misser in 21. And, we keep hearing all these, adjustments he's making, how he's kind of figured it out in the off season, and, all this stuff. But, I looked at it and I was just like, like this, this has got to get a lot better than this. And, I probably phrased it a little more harshly than it had to be, because it sounded like anymore. He'll never make it. Whereas I was just kind of comparing it to earlier in the season when, didn't look too bad. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, you know what, maybe Casey Mize is, starting to figure some things out. And here we are again. So, I don't know if it's fatigue, but I'm not dogging Casey Mize. I'm just kind of mildly worried about Casey Mize, because it's not that I expected tons out of Casey Mize anyway, but you did kind of think you were getting a solid 3-4 back, who would get it going as the year goes on. But you can't go through a major league start with one whiff, and do that, one strikeout. There was a couple strikeouts the time before. He struck out 6 a couple times. He's beaten a couple decent teams too, but it's I don't know. I just don't know. For myself, I'm just absolutely flummoxed with where you go sort of with him right now.
Yeah, it's I mean, we were tweeting the same things at around the same time. I wish I knew the names of the two people who invented calculus at the same time. But it's the same idea. Like, if you can't survive in the big leagues, if you don't miss bats, unless you have like the world's most diabolical sinker, right? Like and he doesn't. I don't know. My suggestion for fans right now is to just pretend that Scooble was the first overall pick that draft, and Mize was the 9th rounder, and then you're fine. You go, oh, okay, this isn't too bad for a 9th rounder.
And Kerry Carpenter was a first rounder, and Spencer Torkelson was
exactly
late rounder or mid rounder.
Just do what you got to do in your head to make it seem okay. It's I don't know, and it is interesting. I been fairly critical of Spencer Torkelson and not as critical of Mize, and people kind of like, what's the deal? He's been bad too. And I'm like, well, I guess, he actually put up a pretty solid season in 2021. Mize did. And there is a little forgiveness there for coming back from 2 pretty serious surgeries on his back and his arm. But yeah, we also know that he really is trying.
Yeah.
Is it like it, and not to say that Spencer Torkelson isn't, but that talk has been that Torkelson is kind of more reluctant to alter his swing mechanics and what his approach, and Mize is not one of those guys. He's a guy who's very thoughtful about the process of pitching, and he works on it, and he's willing to learn and use new stuff. It's just, and he's competing, he's out there with nothing. I can't imagine. It's like being dropped in the ocean and not being able to swim. You're like, all right, well, I got to get home somehow. And that's what he's doing like every start. And so I give him credit for that. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it can last much longer like this.
Yeah, I mean, people will kind of point to like, well, the result wasn't that bad. But I mean, I just was thinking about Mike Pelfrey watching that start and went back. Mike Pelfrey had like 8 or 9, pretty good starts with 2 or less runs. And, you can get away with it, for a while. But over time, if you don't miss bats, they're going to catch you. And right now he's getting ground balls on the 4-seamer and did a nice job of jamming a lot of people. And that worked out. But, again, they kind of bailed him out a little bit. It could have been worse in a couple plays. Obviously, Colt Keith colliding with Akil Baddoo, that was some cartoonish nonsense. And, that did cost him. But he didn't get charged those runs, So,
I mean, there's one thing that you can sit here and say, well, if the Tigers, at least from a development standpoint, have been able to overcome the fact that 2 number 1 picks have struggled, is the victories of something along the lines of Kerry Carpenter and Terry School. Because before, the Tigers were getting nothing from the lower parts of the draft. 0, zap. I'm talking, unless it was a top 5 or top of in draft picks in the first 5 rounds, the Tigers were absolutely getting nothing. So, I mean, if there's something to, I guess, put a consolation prize factor into that, Tigers would be a lot more screwed. I mean, they'd be the White Sox right now who are getting 0 production or those kind of things. So,
and but as Samuel McLean says there too, like, how devastating is it for the big picture if neither one of them really works out? And I think that's a really good thing to bring up because, the whole problem with Spencer Torkelson is he's a first baseman in the first place. So unless he was, God tier Paul Goldschmidt prime, that's eminently replaceable production, and it would have been nice if Casey Mize worked out, but if he's just a back end starter, it doesn't really hold them back that much either. They're still in the position they are, where if they could just shore up a couple, positions on the field, particularly the infield, and get themselves a really killer closer or something, they look pretty good. Looks like a team that could be a problem all season long for, Cleveland and Minnesota or KC, whoever's there.
Well, I mean, you look at the defensive metrics I was showing Chris earlier. And it was, I mean, you get a minus. This is off. What was it?
Fielding Bible.
Fielding Bible. Thank you. -9 from your third base. You get -7 from second base. And then for people who want to bitch about Carson Kelly and Jake Rogers, they're +9. They're the second best catching duo behind only the Yankees. And so that's the kind of. But then the outfield is a pleasant surprise. It was right field was like +5, left field was 7, I want to say, and I forgot what center field was. But either way, the infield production was just putrid, and at first base I think it was like -8, and so it's one of those things where you have to. And Colt Keith is, again, here's where I think we talked about this a little bit last week, Brandon, when you were not here, that we see a future of Colt Keith at first base.
Yeah.
And it's just because there aren't, like I said, it's something that, and I think we talked about this before too, with you before, about how his throws don't seem to be, he doesn't have the same kind of oomph to it than he did when he was at third before his injury. But again, it's just going to be a stopgap measure.
there's still like, yeah, and like the transfer skills. I mean, the stuff that worried me about moving him to second base was like pitching the ball and catching weird angled, flips from Javi Baez himself, playing around the bag, turning it over. And I thought he's been okay there, for the most part. He's been fine, and maybe he will get better. He is still pretty young. I mean, Colt Keith is 22. I don't want to write off that he could, improve defensively. I'm sure Joey Cora is just ripping fungos at him, on the daily, trying to work with him. But did I say Alex Cora? I saw Chris's eyes get big. Joey Cora.
Yeah, I don't know. It is really just a shame that I do think it was that shoulder injury. His arm was I don't know, it was ever like a huge weapon, but he was like low 90s off the mound in high school.
Yeah.
He has basically completely altered his arm throwing motion, his arm stroke. And I don't think he actually got surgery, right? I think he hurt it bad enough and they just kind of rehabbed it. And I just wonder if they're like, well, you can't throw that way anymore.
Yeah.
And that because they're kind of still looking for a third baseman. We talked on our last show that I don't think Jace Young is the answer at third base, unfortunately. Hao-Yu Lee, probably not the answer at third base, although I would play him there more just to see if you're going to give Malloy 60 games and Young 60 games, might as well give Lee 60 games at third, see what happens.
Yeah.
I think I do think first base is probably the ultimate location there now, which is a slight disappointment. We thought he could handle second base, and he could. I think it's just whatever works best for the configuration of the team in the future.
Yeah, it's just going to be about who else makes it and fitting those pieces together. But a shortstop obviously is the huge hole in the infield that they're going to have to come up with an answer for. But if your outfield is good defensively, they're going to save you extra base hits. And if your defense isn't great and they just make all the plays that they're supposed to make, you'd probably be fine if they hit. So I'd love to have a great middle infield again. I grew up with Lou and Tram. I'd love to see something like that again. But I mean, if Cole has to move over to first base, and I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily rush him over there or anything like that. He should probably just stay where he is and learn this year and see how it goes. And if they're not content with it, or if they think they've got to move Jace Young to second base, Colt Keith to first base makes plenty of sense. His glove is not really the problem. It's the agility and mobility to a degree, and just a little bit of a slow transfer on a lot of double play attempted turns, little things like that. But that you see stand out, that those skills just aren't real sharp. Maybe they'll get better. He did play a lot of third base and isn't that used to playing there. But I wouldn't. Long term, I'd say probably first base as well.
And if he goes to first base, he can turn back into Colt Beef and start bulking up again like he did when he was in the AFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that thing up to 260.
It's not it's not, and I like what Samuel said, it's not suffering. 500 ball clubs are naturally more irritating to follow than awful teams because 500 clubs usually have designs on accomplishing things. It's a roller coaster for fans. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I would rather do this though than what happened in 2019 with Ron Gardenhire and where the prospect side of things, there was nothing. I mean, going to the games at West Michigan, when you're watching Nick Quintana go for Golden Sombrero every other time, I'm sorry, I don't miss those days whatsoever. At least I can watch the minors now and look at guys like Lee, who they got in a trade, and Campos, and Kevin McGonigal being like this amazing, a phenomenal player. There's, you have Fran Bear, who, welcome to the club, Lynn. I mean, we've been on the Monty train. His teammates call him Monty. We've been on the Monty train for a while. So welcome aboard, Lynn Henning. We've been conducting this train for a little while there, folks. And then there's even you look at the progress of Dylan Dingler. There's things that you can sit there and go, all right, it's not I'm thinking about 2019. I'm thinking this is not Ali Sanchez or anything like that. There's Jaden Ham.
Mm-hmm. The farm system is actually still pretty good. They graduated Keith and a bunch of new guys have cropped up. It's not a monster farm system or anything, but they seem to have got a groove, I would say, wouldn't you? That this is going to be a steadily productive farm system, if not a great one.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, then I would say in each year we get guys who kind of pop up, not necessarily from nowhere, but they pop up and some of them stay that way and some of them kind of fall back down into earth. But you're getting these real changes and real development from players at just about every level. And sometimes those guys go on and Winslow Perez is a great example, right, of a guy that he was highly regarded but struggling, and then hit what looked like a real breakout, and it's continued all the way up to the big leagues. Now he's cooled off a little bit because the big leagues is very hard, but we all expected that. He's still a productive player on the team. So
yeah, and I mean, we beat up on Alavila enough. I don't need to do it more, but getting to 500 is the easy part. That should only take you like 3-4 years, when you tore down, and it didn't. And here we are. But this is the part where it gets scary, because now you're 2 or 3 good moves from being a legit divisional contender, or maybe even a real October threat. Who knows? But you're also like, if those 2 or 3 moves go wrong, you can quickly burn out and waste another year. Now, you don't know if Tarek Skubal is going to still be around. Either way, you've only got him for 25 and 6 right now. Fitting it into the right window is difficult. And I hear from a lot of people who feel like they're wasting this year. And that's kind of how I feel too. There wasn't like the thing you could do in free agency really to make it all happen, but they didn't make a trade. They didn't deal with, Javi Baez's situation. They didn't deal with third base really. And, they can't do that next year. I mean, if they, I really would love for them to just go on a run and really put it to Scott Harris. Like, look, this team is a viable contender if you get them a little bit of help right now. You don't need to sell the farm or anything like that. I certainly am not going to be happy if they go trading Jackson Jobe for something. Don't do that. But the Tigers' holes are so bleak, so bad that you can just put 2 average players in there, and the Tigers probably gain like 3 WAR on the season. That's not that hard to do, and it's not that big of an ask. We'll get bigger asks in the off season maybe, but yeah.
Well,
but this is a tricky spot. It's a tricky spot to be 500. You could either get the rest of the way, or you could, really screw it up and set us back another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, as Jay pointed out here, that without Skubal, they're 23 and 31. Well, they have them, and that's the point. Is like this weekend was brutal. Friday and Saturday against Boston, a team that they were able to win the series. And so, yeah, I mean, as Walter said, this team, I feel like there's more complaints about this team this year. The fact that the last year at the same time, 11 games under 500.
But that's because people are watching, it's like they're good enough to be watchable, but they're infuriating. Whereas last year they could just ignore them,
What?
Yeah, I just don't get it. And that's the part where it's like finding that happy medium here. And it's like either you have to filter out the noise for what's legit or it's not. But I will say that, I mean, yes, Winfield Perez has come down to earth a little bit more, but I've seen some things with Akil Baddoo that are keep him around as like a viable presence off the bench a little bit. But Milwaukee's good. I mean, Christ. I mean, it's just like I look at a guy like Joey Ortiz. I had to bring him up. I mean, it's just because Milwaukee be able to churn out infielder, like they have a really good farm system in terms of just player development. And Kenny Graham came from there, and you're starting to see some of those elements from Kenny Graham on some of the implemented with the Tigers. So, it's even with like the biggest thing I noticed, like somebody like Trey Cruz, for example. I texted him last week about his footwork, and he has been like, that's why he's been going like primarily focusing on that. It's been as a result, the numbers show at the play a little bit, but those are kind of things that the organization, like the work's got me this stuff that's becoming more commonplace than normal. It's just becoming commonplace. So
yeah, it's just a tough, spot because 2 out of 5 games they look like a good team. 2 out of 5 games they look mediocre at best, and then there's usually one stinker in there. And if you can erase that stinker with one good one, all of a sudden there you're in business. But that's what it's like. I mean, I probably in this chat there's a lot of like serious baseball fans who watch a lot of other baseball, but most people do not watch other teams, and they just cannot fathom that every other team, like, it doesn't matter who the top team in the game is. You can go find a whole bunch of games where they look terrible and they just got tore up. The Milwaukee Brewers looked terrible yesterday. Their fan base was losing their mind. And I was like, you guys were going up against Tarek Skubal, and we had like 2 game-saving or 2 home run robberies and a diving catch from Riley Green. You guys are doing fine. I want to hear it.
No, yeah, I do think part of it is I think you've described it well, is the way, just the feeling It feels like when the Tigers win, it feels like they fought their way out of Mordor with a shovel. Like it's like this incredible, like brutal
you're shocked
battle. And then they've had very few games like yesterday where it's like a blowout early on and they can kind of just coast. And even some of the one craziest game of the year felt like that. And then they let Toronto back in and had to win in a walk-off. So it's the losses are tough and the wins aren't quite as jubilant as they should be. But there's progress in this team. It's just hard for people to pick up on it when the games are so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I like to just point, like there's just one player sometimes, like if we had Mason Miller in that bullpen, Tigers might have like 4 more wins.
Go get them.
That's kind of the weakness that's killing me right now. I expected Javi to, be Javi and whatever, but I kind of thought the bullpen would be a fair bit better than this. And unfortunately, most of them are, struggling after kind of a slightly fluky hot start. So that's another point of issue. I don't know if they're going to do, maybe move Montero or something, maybe do some conversions there. Hopefully Flores comes back and kind of gets it together, somebody, but they need another arm down there, another good one. Fortunately, Brisky looked pretty good the first couple times out.
He's been walking some people again. But speaking of progress and all things progress, a man who's been witnessing a lot of progress down in Erie. How do you like that for a segue, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, very good.
That is one of the voices of the Erie SeaWolves in his second year broadcasting with the team, Sam Levowitz, who joins us. And Sam, thanks for first and foremost taking the time to join us. And we always have a question that we like to ask our first-time guests. Chris, take it away, sir.
Hey, Sam, what's happening? That's not the question.
Glad to be here. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah. Perfect, cool.
We just like to hear about your earliest baseball memories.
Okay.
Or earliest baseball memory, as it were.
So my baseball origin story and why I'm on the odd career path, the unique, interesting career path that I'm on. So not to date myself too much, or at least show maybe how young I am.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I thought you were going to go the other way. I'm like, shut up.
The inverse one.
So,
okay.
I have an older brother, and if you have older siblings, growing up, they've got control of everything. I would wake up on the weekends. My brother would be playing whatever video game he was into at the time. So I was 9 years old, and his latest game was Major League Baseball 2K8 or 2K9. I think it was 2K8 originally, and then it transitioned into 2K9 when that came out. And I was not athletically gifted. I was not really into sports all that much when I was around that age. This was when I was 9 years old. And eventually watching him play as much as I did, I wanted him to teach me how to play. And then soon enough, I'm a rather obsessive person when I get into things. Watching him play, learning how to play the game became my game. I learned all 30 rosters on MLB 2K9. I would just go and play and play franchise mode a lot. And then I transitioned into real baseball, and I got into my Mets, my hometown Mets, which I grew up rooting for, and still they have a hold on me, unfortunately. So, and that's just kind of how it happened. I started playing baseball around that time too. I really just dove in, and once I realized that I sucked, I stuck with it. I played throughout high school too. I sucked, but I played. I was like, I'll do the broadcasting thing. I like being around the sport, and I don't want to give that up. And here I am talking about it for.
Right on. It's amazing how much of baseball is forged by older brothers.
Really is.
Players, and whatever. Yeah, Scooble and Jake Rogers talked about this a lot.
Yeah, he almost became spiteful about it. He doesn't really care about baseball anymore, and I think it was because I ruined it for him because yeah.
It's funny too. Is my older brother he was in the horror movies and animation, and I even to this day it's with my father, or not even my dad. It was the 87 world the 87 run of the Tigers that got me into baseball. That was what I started playing Little League the following year after that. Not too long after that. So, but my brother didn't understand the sport. Now he is, but it's just it's weird. I went from Freddy Krueger. Yeah. So
you'll appreciate this. I know you're a Transformers guy. My brother and I share a bond over 1986's The Transformers the movie.
Oh, you got the touch.
I do, yeah. Stan Bush on that soundtrack, man. I still pop on Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way every time and time again. Great soundtrack. That movie, I've probably seen that movie 24 times in my life at least. That would be like our go-to when my family, when like this is how young I am. In 2006, you guys were paying attention to Tigers' run of the World Series. I was asking my parents if we can get this movie out of Blockbuster.
Yeah.
We would, yeah. 6-year-old Sam just watching this movie, not even caring that in the first scene of the movie, the entire cast of the original series is getting killed off. I didn't care. I thought the movie was badass. I still think the movie is badass.
It's such a badass movie. I can go on and talk about they're actually remaking the toys with the death scene for that too. But we did get a quick question in here. Did the outfield glitch in 2K9 piss you off as much as it did me?
I don't remember. I was 9.
That's just how games were.
Yeah.
It is nice to hear. It's nice to hear that people still becoming fans of sports that way. That was kind of, I remember in the early 90s playing baseball games that didn't keep track of stats. So I had to like make my own 162 game season and keep track of stats myself. But then like, I didn't know anything about hockey whatsoever. And then the hockey video games started coming out, and soon enough, I knew like every 6th defenseman on every team in the league. It's different now. We didn't have the internet back then.
We need Raj to drop the Blades of Steel cut, but we don't have it.
It's on the board. It's on the board too. But so right now, I'm sure you're headed out to Altoona as they kick off a 6-game series. And over the weekend, you saw Hao-Yu Lee just annihilate some pitching against a New Hampshire team. The Blue Jays are not as stocked as they used to be, but we'll start with Lee. As far as him playing third, I know you've seen him play where it's like this. The arm strength is there, but the range, is it something where he just struggles making the routine play? I mean, what have you seen him at Lee at third so far?
I think it's not necessarily. I think with Hao-Yu an issue with his fielding at third base. I mean, he only plays third once every 2 weeks or anything like that. I think it's not being used to the position. I think that he could do with some more reps over there because he's a solid second baseman. I just think that he needs to kind of visualize and see the throw more often. I think his issues at third have been throwing errors. And that's something that as the season has gone on, his throwing, it's not a problem, not to the level that it was with like Wenzel Perez last year when he was with us in Erie, and they had to move him out to the outfield. That's how he got out to the outfield. He stopped being able to make the throw from second base. But with Hao-Yu, it's almost like the release isn't consistent out of his hand. The arm strength, like you said, is there, but I'd like to see the release point out of the fingertips a little bit better. I actually had a scout flag that for me this week, talking to a scout. It basically said I need to see him play more. I need to see him throw more because I'm noticing something on his release that I would need to see him play for an extended period of time to know if that's really something to keep an eye on, or if he's just doing it on every 20th, every 25th throw. But they noticed something that could cause some concern. I don't necessarily want to say, because again, this guy had seen him play 2 or 3 games. I don't necessarily want to say it is that, but I think that his hands are good. His range is good. He always gets good first step. He's especially good on the back end plays at second base, moving up the middle to his left, right to his right. I always have to, because it's reversed for me. Yeah, because it's flipped for me when I'm watching the game from the press box, so I always have to adjust. And now I don't have a field in front of me, so I have to do it in my head. So he's adept at making that play. I think he's always really, really good at making that play and throwing off kind of his off balance throws as he's moving to the shortstop side of second base. I think that he's pretty adept at making those plays. So when he doesn't have to think about it, I think that the release and the throw and the strength is good. I think what I've noticed is a couple of the throwing errors have been on routine plays when he's had time to think about it. There was one that he didn't get charged with an error this week against New Hampshire, where it was a fielder's choice. They got the out at second, and he threw the ball away on the back end at first, and he had time to make that throw. So I think that when he doesn't think about it, he's been totally fine, but he has been making more errors on the throws on routine chances. But again, I've had no reason to believe there's any concern with his hands or with how he fields the baseball or anything like that. I think he's a solid defensive second baseman. And as a 21-year-old, these are things that you can kind of iron out as time progresses. It's all part of development. And he went a while this year without really making errors, period. It's kind of compounded over the last 2-3 weeks. He's made 4 or 5 errors. But before that, I think he had made 1 error at second base in the first 7-8 weeks of the season. So it's not a concern for me, really.
And then you start trying not to make errors, and sometimes you make more errors, maybe. That might be Jace Young's issue a little bit too in Toledo. It's interesting. I'd love to talk to someone in the Tigers organization about teaching throwing to infielders. It would just be interesting to see, if there's any of the same pitching philosophy comes into it, or if they really view it as its own, separate art form entirely.
Yeah. And everybody's paying attention to his bat, though. I mean, we're digging in deep to the glove because that's interesting to us. But everybody else, we post the highlights and like, oh man, get this guy to Toledo immediately. I'm like, all right, slow down. But also, yes, it's been fun to watch him. He really seems to have kind of leaned into that pull side, pull the ball high in the air, hit for power. That home run he hit the other day was an absolute bomb.
Yeah, it was. That was the longest pulled home run by a right-hand hitter at UPMC Park this season, I think, for either side. He hit it onto the roof of the insurance arena. So that was 433 feet on our Hawkeye dashboard. I mean, it was every ounce of that. I've been impressed by him and his development this season. I forget that he's as young as he is. He's the youngest player on the team. He's been the youngest player on the team the entire season. It was him and Job were the 2 young guys that we had on a very veteran roster on opening day, and Job's been out for a while now. So it's really been just Hao-Yu as the young kids on this team, whereas last year we had a younger team in comparison to where we are this year. I didn't know what we would get with him this year. I didn't know what kind of player he was. We were up in the press box last year on trade deadline day, as locked in as I'm sure you guys were, pregame, just like waiting, trying to figure out who the Tigers were going to sell off and seeing what pieces were going to come through. And we had already locked up the playoff spot from the first half at that point, right? And we knew we had a good team heading into the postseason, but we wanted a better team. And you guys know this experience when you cover or when you watch a good team every day, even if it's a good team, you want to get greedy. You want more. It never feels like the team, even if you're winning 4 or 5 times a week because of the nature of the sport, you're going to lose 2-3 games a week, regardless of how good your team is. And so you're watching all these losses that are compiling, even if you're still winning 58, 60% of your games. And you just feel like they need something more. They need to shore up the holes that they want to shore up. And so that was that kind of way with us too, with Greg and I in the broadcast booth last year, and then the rest of our employees in the press box in the front office. We were like, can the Tigers maybe beef up the Erie SeaWolves through trades at the trade deadline? And then the only move that they make is for this 21-year-old kid in high A who's clearly not going to play in double A this year because his numbers are pretty good but not great. He's a good prospect, not a great prospect. He's not a power hitter. What are we going to get here? And so when he showed up this year, I was like, okay, intriguing. We got the guy from the Lorenzen trade. Naturally, we were a little let down that we didn't get anybody else to beef up our team last year. And then the Tigers go ahead and they move Justice Bigby up to AAA, and we're freaking out. How are we going to win in the playoffs? How are we going to score runs in the playoffs? And we sweep the playoffs out. And then
that was some serious pitching you guys had there down the stretch. Holy smoke!
Yes, Brant Herter putting this team on his back in his 2 playoff spots, playoff starts. I will never forget that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't know what we would expect out of Hao-Yu this year, and he was kind of going through these fits and starts early in the season, where he'd have a hot week, or he was kind of a very hot and cold guy, more so than most players, whereas his streaks were confined to 1 to 3 game stretches, it seemed like. He couldn't put it together for a whole series, but he wouldn't slump for a whole series. He'd have a stretch of games where he would barrel everything, and he'd go 5 for 9 with a homer, and then he would go 0 for his next 11 with 5 strikeouts, because that swing, it doesn't change. If you guys have noticed watching him play, he swings really, really freaking hard.
Yeah.
On everything. And yet what's so impressive about him to me is that as the barrels have kind of racked up and the pull side power is racked up, even a little bit of opposite field power, as he showed more power this year than he showed at any point last year and at any point in his career, he still is not chasing a lot outside the strike zone. The swing and miss is there, but it's not aggressively so. It's not concerningly so. The chase isn't concerning. He's still drawing walks. He's drawn 25 walks this year, I think is the number. Strikeout to walk is not egregiously bad. He's putting the ball in play still, even with these gigantic swings, even seemingly not really cutting down on these swings. I was talking to our video and data guy, Alex, about him actually Saturday after he hit the home run. And we were talking about how he swings the bat. And the adjective he used to describe how Hao-Yu swings the bat, he says he swings the bat angry. It's like he's angry at the pitch coming in. He wants to hurt the baseball. And I think that is a really good way of putting it. And yet still, he's put together this really good triple slash line. He's driving in runs. He's putting the ball in play. He's doing a lot of little things right. And in a time where the minor leagues in general is kind of in a downswing, the quality of prospect across Major League Baseball is not as good as it was 2-3 years ago. I think that he's a guy who could, at this point, get some consideration for back ends of top 100 lists as we move into the midseason. I think we're at that level with him.
You know, and his swing isn't that long either. You know, he looks like he's just gotten a lot stronger over the past year, and there's all that rotational energy he's got going there.
He mentioned that too when we talked to him. When I talked to him back in April, I'm sorry, it's in May, where he said that his approach to the plate, he's always looking for a fastball.
Yes,
and that's what he has a certain pitch in mind as he approaches it, and he just is kind of just like he goes just whatever I can do to barrel it up. And that's
he doesn't
where
swing through fastballs. He never swings through a fastball. He might foul but he never swings through a fastball.
And that's the biggest thing. He said that he was trying to change from last year from when he was at West Michigan.
Yeah, and for him to be able to make the adjustment and catch a hanging breaking ball out in front like he did on Saturday, I think that there's a lot going well mechanically in his swing right now. He's had a very good 3-4 week stretch now where you start when you watch minor league baseball every day, and you guys know this too, covering the minor leagues too, but when you watch specific players every day up close and personal, when players start to kind of turn things and put together quality performance, there are hot streaks and it happens, but once you go through these times where it's 3, 4, 5 weeks consecutively where they're playing really, really solid baseball, they're putting together good lines week in, week out, series to series, against these pitching staffs that you're seeing 6 straight times. You start to think, this isn't a streak, this is development happening. And for a guy as talented as Lee, I do think that's what we're seeing right now. I think that he's given us a lot of reasons to genuinely be excited about him as a piece and a real good bit of pro side scouting for the Tigers.
Nice. Yeah.
As far as go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to go back to I think you're forgetting about the big trade deadline acquisition last year of Donnie Sands.
We had Donnie in Erie for a few days. He hit a home run in our Pepperoni Balls jerseys.
That's right.
So he's all over our promotional stuff for that. And, he got brought up the other day actually by one of my coworkers. Just kind of, hey, remember Donnie Sands? That guy was a tank.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a weird circumstance, and we always thought it had something to do with the Erod move, right? Like there was somehow suddenly this AAA catcher gets it down to AA, but I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they just he came at the same time we had Faedo for one appearance last year.
That's right, yeah.
And it was because the Tigers were in Pittsburgh, and they needed to keep Faedo. They were optioning Faedo, but they didn't want to send him to Iowa or wherever Toledo was at the time. They wanted to keep him on turn, and so they, sent him 2 hours up the road from Pittsburgh to Erie via car service, and they sent Donnie Sands. I don't remember the circumstance why Donnie Sands came with him, but I remember being told, "Hey, by the way, we're getting Alex Faedo. He's going to pitch such and such day, and Donnie Sands, who's on the 40-man roster, is coming with him." I was just like, okay. And then Faedo made his start and left, and we had Donnie Sands for like 4 more days after that. For whatever reason, they just kept him in town for an entire week.
Get some pepperoni balls.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird circumstance, but that was a text from Greg that I was like, okay, I'll beef up the player bio in the game notes, sure.
Yep. We got to focus on this guy now. Yep.
Yeah.
So the rotation, obviously, it's not the same kind of. You have a lot of you have Troy Melton coming in first year in Double A. He's still making adjustments where you see him. You know what the potential is there, and then Wilkil Hernandez, not a big strikeout guy, but there's still. This is a team that's only one game back of first place against a very. Akron's been one of the better teams in the Eastern League again because Cleveland with that. But what other pitchers have stood out to you this year, Sam, that have kind of really kept the SeaWolves in contention for a first half title?
It's been odd. It's been real odd on the starting side, rotation wise, because the makeup of the rotation from where we were on opening day has dramatically changed, and we're not even to the end of the first half. I mean, with Jackson Jobe getting hurt, and then the promotions of Ty Madden and Lyle Lockhart, only 2 of the 5 guys that were here in our opening day rotation, and Melton and Wilkel, are still here. And you have newcomers like Garrett Burhan and Carlos Pena, who's not technically a newcomer to the Double A level with that one appearance he made in 2022, but he for all intents and purposes, is a newcomer. And then you have Austin Bergner back with a veteran presence who has been surprisingly very good since he came back down to Erie, because he had that really difficult start when he had those 5 starts up in AAA Toledo. So the rotation itself has been very odd. I think that with Berger's been huge, first of all, for him to come out. His first start was so-so, but really ever since then, he's been super steady for the SeaWolves. It's really been win day when Austin Berger's been pitching, even if it's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It's deep counts. It's taken up a lot of the pitch clock, but it's 5 innings of 1-run, 2-run ball pretty much every time out there. And if he's facing the Richmond Flying Squirrels, he's going to strike out a dozen guys or 11 guys, which
he has been racking up. Yeah, he's been racking up the strikeouts. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just against that team.
Yeah,
he at home. I think it was May 11th. I want to say the Saturday that series against Richmond, he struck out 11 over 5 innings of 1-run ball, 2 hits, and then he had pretty much the exact same line when he pitched down in Richmond a week and a half ago. And struck out 11 again. He had never struck out double-digit batters in his professional career since he was drafted in 2019. He did it twice in a month span against the same team.
I thought it was a typo. I really thought it was.
Yeah. I was calling the game, and I couldn't believe what was happening because I've watched him for the last 2 years, and he's never been that guy. Whether he's been starting or relieving, he's never been the high strikeout guy. He's been a strikeout per inning type guy, but never 11 in 5 innings, and he did it twice. So he's been a I would say a calming presence in the rotation, as in the results have really been there. You look up at the scoreboard when he's out of the game and you're like, okay, we're in this game or we're winning this game, and he pitched pretty well. Even if it winds up being a 2-hour and 50-minute game because he took his time. But you know what? You have all 18 seconds, be deliberate. Why not? If that's what you need. Lyle Lockhart did the same thing, and we never complained about him, so it's not fair for me to do it with Berger. But
maybe they're just trying to get the clock embedded in their head, count it down each time. Used to it.
You know what? He had that start in Richmond. He should have had 3 pitch timer violations. The home plate umpire missed all 3.
When I heard you and Greg talking about him, he'll go through a handful of baseballs before he picks one that he likes and throws it.
Yes. He was actually working with better pace in the start against New Hampshire this past week, and we decided we were going to keep count of how many baseballs he throws out. He only he proved us wrong on everything. He was not as deliberate. He was working with better pace. The game was moving quicker, and he only threw out 3. So he kind of disproved. We'll have to see how he feels in his next start down in Altoona. He actually has tomorrow's game, so we'll see how that goes. But so he's been a big difference maker for a rotation that has kind of pivoted to the younger side since Madden and Lockhart have elevated up to Toledo, because you have Garrett Burhan now, who's a first-timer in Double A. Melton is still going through some growing pains at the Double A level, which he pitched much better yesterday, which was really much needed for Troy. It had been a string of 4 turns in a row where it just didn't go well for him. So for him to come out and throw 5 innings of 1-run ball was really important for him. And the stuff looked really good yesterday too, which is good. The stuff has looked good pretty much the entire season. It's just been a matter of results for him.
I just wanted to kind of hit on, since we're talking about Melton and the home runs the last couple outings. I know there's been a few hanging sliders and such, but he also kind of has given me the vibe that Jobe had for a while in West Michigan, where he was almost throwing too many strikes. He was just pumping it in there.
Yeah, you're right on the mark with that. I think.
Okay.
I think you're right on the mark with that. He throws too many strikes. And yesterday, one thing that he was doing better was the pitch placement in 2 strike counts was significantly better.
Okay. Yeah.
He was getting his slider and his changeup outside the strike zone with more consistency. He was spotting his fastball really, really well in the corners, especially on 2 strikes, which was good to see. I mean, the one pitch he left over the heart of the plate was the home run he gave up to Sosa yesterday, which I'm more concerned about the righty-lefty splits. 7 of the 10 homers he's allowed this year to righties.
Yeah.
So that's a concern, and I think it is a specific way that his fastball plays. You see sometimes he has natural cut on his fastball, but it doesn't always get there. Sometimes it actually runs more, and I think when it runs instead of cuts, it tends to run right into the barrel of right-handed batters, especially when it's over the heart of the plate. So I think that's an issue that he's kind of working with right now, is consistency with the release of the fastball and the shape of the fastball and the amount of strikes he's throwing.
And also still maybe developing the cutter slider, because it's still, you know, I mean, it's a pretty good pitch some of the time, but it's not real consistent necessarily as far as like breaking it off for big whiffs and such.
Yeah, the cutter and the slider are 2 different pitches. He does throw a upper 80s slider that is more traditionally slidery, and then there is a cutter in there as well, which 91, 92 with some cutting action. He doesn't throw it a ton, especially lately. I don't really think he threw it at all against New Hampshire yesterday. I'd have to look back.
Okay. Yeah.
He was mostly fastball slider change yesterday. He throws his changeup very hard. He throws his changeup 88 to 91, and it doesn't always get the good fade on it. And I think sometimes when it's a little firmer in velocity, it straightens out a little bit. The home run he allowed in the first start against New Hampshire to the left-hand batter Garrett Spain was the changeup, and it sat right over the heart of the plate. And it didn't really do much. It was a 2-strike changeup, if I remember correctly. And then it was the second home run he allowed in that start was, again, a right-handed hitter, first pitch fastball down the middle that he jumped on. And so I think with Troy, the stuff is there, and the stuff plays in the zone when it's in good spots too. He just needs to not throw it over the middle of the plate, which feels silly to say that, but that has been something that's plagued him. And then I think the other thing with him is putting innings to bed, is that when things compound behind him and he has to deal with some traffic and pitch out of the stretch, he's had the difficulty bearing down and getting out of innings. I mean, he had that one really, really bad inning where he gave up the 6 runs against Altoona in the second and couldn't survive that inning. And then the following start, he had to leave the game after an inning because he gave up 3 straight 2-out base runners and walked in a run. Just couldn't put that inning to bed. So I think those are the 2 things right now with him, is bearing down with guys on base and 2 outs and putting innings away, and then also figuring out how to execute on 2 strikes. He trusts his stuff almost too much. I mean, that is something that has been consistently among conversations that I have with people about Troy, be it scouts or evaluators. It's like they always say the same thing. It's like, I like how much he trusts his stuff, and I like how much he throws it aggressively and pounds the strike zone. Those are all good things. But as he develops, he needs to figure out kind of a time and place of like you said, Job kind of had the same problem. I've heard that before, actually, similarly from evaluators. It was like, is he throwing too many strikes? And then Job was starting to find his footing at the AA level before he got hurt, and was doing that less. He was figuring out how to pitch in 2-strike counts to AA hitters better. So I think
just learning to expand the zone a little bit and try to get them to chase before you just fire something in there. There's an artistry that has to come along, and you don't need to
figure out what
A-ball. Didn't need it in A-ball because they were both so good. So
when you have fastballs like Troy and like Jackson do, and you have off speeds that work, I mean, Troy's changeup, I think, was what worked best for him at the high A level. I mean, we see it at a more elevated, at a greater example with a guy like Drew Thorpe, who has now bounced to 3 organizations in less than a year and is about to make his major league debut with the White Sox. When we saw him in Somerset, he was throwing his changeup in the strike zone all the time because his changeup was so good and so abnormal that he could throw it whenever he wanted to. I mean, it was a changeup that guys just didn't see. It was that good, and it was that different than most other changeups that, like, he could just spam it and he would get outs. Whether guys were rolling over it or swinging through it, he could get outs. And for guys whose stuff is good, but maybe not, like, that's like a 7-grade pitch. For Troy, it's probably a 55 or a 6. it's not going to play as well as Thorpe's would at Double-A, but it's certainly going to play really, really well in High A. Same thing with his fastball. His fastball is probably a 6 fastball. If you talk to evaluators, but you have to spot it in good spots when you're at higher levels. And so there's an adjustment there. With Jackson, it's different because Jackson is Jackson.
Yep.
I mean, hitters are talking all the time about how he's got some of the best stuff they've ever seen.
Yeah, it's ferocious. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're hoping to get him back soon. So that'll be cool. I miss watching him pitch.
We're all
Somebody mentioned
we all do.
Somebody asked in the comments if there was any update, and I think all any of us have heard is that he's thrown a bullpen or two and then started to work his way back. We don't know if, there's no timetable yet or anything.
All I've heard is he still hasn't gotten back in against hitters yet. And the Tigers, I mean, he's progressing quote unquote normally, and the Tigers expect him to be back at some point.
And they're going to be as careful as you possibly can be with someone because he is a prized possession for sure.
Right. There's been no substantial updates. I have asked. There has been no substantial updates.
And hamstrings tend to they'll reoccur if you're not super careful with them.
Yeah, they can be tough.
I did want to touch on a couple more of the hitters. We've talked a bunch about Erie. Erie this year is not necessarily filled with prospects, but there's a lot of really good baseball players in that team, and a couple of them. One of them just was named Player of the Week in Jake Holton. Yeah. He's just a really solid baseball player. And the other one, and I almost feel like I don't want to put too much on this, but Carlos Mendoza has really, I think, made a positive impact on the SeaWolves this year. He's just a pain in the ass. Yeah. That's what I always describe him as for opposing pitchers.
He's hitting too,
he's doing great.
Great dude to have at the top of the order for sure. He's been disciplined like that.
Fun. He has been super fun to watch every day. Yesterday was a really good example of this, Chris, where he seemingly was just pissing off New Hampshire. So he drew a couple of walks. He didn't even start with this team this year, and he's already drawn 30 walks. He's in the top, I think, 5 or 6 in walk totals in the Eastern League this year. He's leading by 30 points in on-base percentage now that he's qualified.
Wow.
30, yeah. He's getting on base at a 440 clip.
Yeah.
It might be 450 after he walked 2 times yesterday. Yeah. So he's having that kind of season since getting to Double-A. He's got a Player of the Week honor to his credit. But he had that game yesterday. He walked. He's always moving his feet, prancing around at first base, getting his leads, always aggressive on the secondaries. I mean, the Tigers across the minor leagues this year, they're doing this vaulting thing where guys are trying to get more aggressive secondaries and kind of jumping back and forth to try to draw pickoff throws. And he didn't need to be told to do that, I don't think. So he did that. He kind of broke and stopped after walking for the second time, and the catcher back picks to first it wasn't close. And then the next pitch, again, fastball kind of away, takes the catcher to his backhand side, pops out of the crouch, back picks to first. That time he didn't even vault off first and get an aggressive secondary, not any more so than he normally would. But I said this on air to Greg, I was just like, they are so sick of this guy and his little antics. They're like desperate just to get rid of him and get him off the base paths. And this catcher doesn't want to risk him stealing a base. He had already stolen a base early in the game. I think he had 3 or 4 this week against New Hampshire alone. I think he's 12 or 13 this year. They were just like, let's get this freaking guy off the base paths. We're sick of him. We can't get him out. We can't stop walking him. And when he gets on base, he's wreaking havoc against us. We're sick of him. And that is the kind of player he is. I mean, he's got 4 triples this year, so the slug has been there for a guy who doesn't hit the ball out of the ballpark. I'd like to see him try to – I mean, he had a couple of baseballs this week that he kind of sliced towards the alley and left center, and they were kind of playing him that way. So I think he needs to kind of make an adjustment if the defense is playing him kind of shaded the opposite way because he likes to spray the ball that way. But he'll also pull the ball off the line. And that's where a couple of his triples have been too. And then his triple this week, he hit it off the center field fence. So he's a little guy, but he's very, very strong. And he's been a pleasure to watch. He's the kind of player where, and Gabe Alvarez said this to us when we got him, and we sat down with Gabe and we said, what do you have on Mendoza? And he pretty much said, a lot of the coaching staffs across the minors wanted him on their team this year. They wanted him assigned to their level to start. I wanted him assigned to us to start because he's that kind of player. He is exciting. He will impress you. And then the same inning, he'll make an error in the field or get himself picked off and piss you off. And then he'll turn back around and draw a walk on a 10-pitch at bat, or hit a double to score a run, or steal a base. And like, you'll go back and forth on him. You'll be like, this guy is too aggressive, and he pisses you off sometimes, but he also does so much right that you're glad he's on your team. He's one of those kind of guys. He's always doing something that impacts the game, positive or negative. In this season with Erie, it has mostly been positive.
Right on. Yep.
Oh,
yeah. Love that engagement. Like, there's just no letdown, where he's just going to hang out at first base. He's going to try to get in your head every time.
If you can see him
when
on
he's
the
healthy too,
field,
I mean, it's the problem is that when he gets injured, it's always like nicked up based off the way he plays sometimes too, because he gets a little bit aggressive.
He'll run into the wall for you, and he's that kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing him play in West Michigan where he went all the way from like just catch a foul ball, just the way he'll run down the line from like practically almost second base to third, like just the way it's reckless. A couple of last questions. In terms of Trey Cruz and Gage Workman, is it a product of them being, this is now pretty much their third year in Erie, or are they really turning a corner as far as like just prospects go? Because I mean, right now you have Navigato's not going anywhere. Navigato's having a really good year in Toledo, but is it just, when do you say, okay, what do you have with Trey Cruz? Which I think there's been a bunch of hard contact watching him live and watching him, and just overall, I feel like he has evolved quite a bit. But I know they have him currently in the infield right now because of the outfield situation. But I don't know, Sam. It's just, I feel like there's a major leaguer there with Trey Cruz.
I agree with you. So I wasn't sure if I would have agreed with that statement after April. He had a real slow April. We know that. We've talked about that to death. He hit 119 in April, and then he hit 350 in May. I want to correct you. He's not necessarily just playing the infield mostly because of the outfield situation. He's playing shortstop almost every day because he's the best shortstop on the roster. And they like him there as well. He can play a good center field too. He can. But I mean, when you have Brady Allen and Ben Malgieri, you can go get him in center. That helps too. It makes it less of a factor that you need to get him out there. But he plays real good shortstop. He's playing a better shortstop this year than he played at any point last year. His actions at shortstop, his transitions between fielding and throwing have been excellent. His first step on balls, especially balls in the hole to backhand side, always really, really good. So he's been a pleasure to watch play shortstop. I mean, he's been excellent at shortstop this year, and he's also a really good center fielder. He's just a super athlete, is what I don't think people understand about Trey. Is he's a freak. He's really, really good no matter where you put him. I do think that there's a major leaguer there because of the versatility. It helps. The offensive profile, it's weird. It is really, really weird. He's kind of having the reverse season that he had from last year, where he got up to a hot start and he was better as a right-hand hitter. This year he got up to a slow start. He's been much better, obviously, since the calendar turned to May, and he's also not hit at all from the right side of the plate this year. He's hit no power from the right side of the plate, and he's hitting below 200 from the right side of the plate this year against lefties. And he's hitting significantly better against left-handed or against right-handed pitching as a left-hand batter, and all his power has been as a left-hand hitter this year. So it's been a weird reversal from last season to this season. But I do think, and this is pure speculation, I think that based on the crop of position players that the SeaWolves have right now, he is a guy that probably will work himself into consideration for a promotion to Toledo based off of his level of play offensively and kind of turning his season around after a slow April, but also that versatility. You mentioned that Navigato's not going anywhere. Love seeing Navi have a good season up in Toledo. He deserves a chance up there. Him getting hurt last year was really a low point in last season covering the team. That just sucked. He is an awesome individual. He's a really, really good guy. And to see him be successful at a higher level is awesome. I hope he's a major leaguer. I really do, because he deserves the chance. He's the kind of guy who has hit everywhere he has gone, even when he's overlooked. And he's a good shortstop too. But Navigato is also a guy you can move around the diamond. And so when you have guys like Trey Cruz and Navigato who can both play multiple positions, I don't think it creates a situation where having one begets having the other. And I think a promotion would be a fair thing for Trey at some point this season. Again, he's been in Erie for well over a season and a half at this point, based on when he came up in 2022. I mean, he has a full season and now a full season plus a half, really, under his belt at the AA level. He's 25 now. He's a little younger than I think people realize for a guy who's been at AA as long as he has been. And even still, Gage Workman's younger than him by a year, which is also something people forget. Gage is still just 24. Development is not a linear thing. Sometimes guys take a little longer to figure things out, and Gage has had a better season this year, though he's been slower recently. But with Trey, I think that once you start seeing – I think once there's a promotion on the infield out of Toledo to the major league level, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Jace Young, if he's a major leaguer at some point before August, then I think it creates a situation in which you probably have Trey Cruz, Toledo Mudhen. That is a scenario that puzzle pieces fit for me in my head. This is not informed speculation, purely speculation. I do think that if Trey continues on the path that he's on right now, in terms of the season he's having, he'll be in AAA at some point this year. And like you said, Raj, I think there's a big leaguer there because he does so much right that even when he's not hitting, you still kind of point at him and go, good baseball player. I like watching him play every day, especially when he's been playing shortstop to the level that he's been playing this year, which is far and away the best it's ever been.
Yeah, I was just going to say there was one thing about him defensively, shortstop, when he first came up, where there was the inconsistency. I know that it was kind of driving Gabe nuts at some point, but I'm glad to see that it's gotten better. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
It was kind of one of those like all flash, no substance kind of shortstop plays where he was more concerned about making things look good than making plays because he is a flashy player. I mean, we see it with he's always coordinating his outfits underneath jerseys to the jerseys themselves. He has like 12 different arm sleeves of various colors in rotation. And he's got all the cleats and but I think as he's kind of grown up a little and evolved as a player, he has figured out how to make things look good while also making the plays. Because everything is still smooth and the actions are really, really good.
He's certainly one of those guys that looks like he was raised by big leaguers, you know? I mean, Cody Clemens had some of that as well, where you just see like they've been handling the baseball this way since they were like 5, you know.
Yeah, he's a super naturally talented baseball player. Yeah. That if he could ever figure out how to just be consistent as an offensive player, absolutely a big leaguer.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, well, Sam, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We're gonna have to we have still Toledo, West Michigan, and Lakeland to talk about, but so as you're heading to Altoona for a 6-game series starting tomorrow, big series as the SeaWolves are chasing the Akron Ducks. Are now just a game out of the Southwest Division. And when is the first half over with? Coming up in a couple weeks.
We have 12 more. Yeah, we got 12 more, and we're on the road for the next 2. So we're done with our home schedule in the first half. We just finished that up yesterday. We've got Altoona and then Somerset.
I hope you can avoid rehabbing Garrett Cole.
That would be his fourth. That would be his fourth turn. Okay. That would be his fourth turn by the time we get there. And I don't even think the Yankees are silly enough to do that.
Okay.
No.
Have him make his fourth turn in Scranton. Do that instead. Don't have him with us. We don't.
I don't get Altoona. I don't get. I mean, we have Dustin Peterson on your roster. What the hell are you doing? I mean, I know what you're doing. You're just messing with other people. I mean, you're at that point. You're just like, look, we don't care. We're gonna put these veteran like. It was.
Have you seen their roster? Have you seen their record, Raj?
Yeah.
They're. I want to say that they have a -73 run differential and Erie's is +72.
But they somehow play Erie. They always play Erie tough. That
last series was a bummer.
That was weird. Here, I'll leave you with this. So I was getting settled in at work yesterday, and I'm in our ticket office, and our team president, Greg Coleman, comes in. He's my boss. He's my boss's boss, and he says, just to anyone who was listening, I realized something. And then he points at me. He goes, Sam, you probably already know this because you're the guy who keeps track of this stuff. When we were at this point in the home schedule last year, they had to win on Sunday against Bowie to avoid a 6-game sweep.
Mm-hmm.
When they were at this point in the first half schedule last season, they were just coming off of a 5-game losing streak. And they still figured out a way to win the first half. That's how quickly things can change in the nature of these halves. They're still chasing 2 games back in the division, but and you got the leapfrog 2 teams, which is difficult, but there's 12 games left, and that could happen in 2 games.
Yeah,
they can win 2 straight and find themselves in first place, and they're playing 2 teams that are under 500. And we'll see how things go with the curve. They lost 4 of 6 to this god awful curve team, obviously. However, this is a curve team that just lost a player to AAA. Braxton Ashcraft just went up to AAA. He's one of their better pitchers, so he won't start in the series. I don't know. We'll see. Somerset is also a team they can hit. Ben Rice, who's been raking for them for the last year, he just went up to AAA too, so that's one less piece to contend with. And they haven't really pitched this year. So there's opportunities for the SeaWolves here to rack up some wins in the final 2 weeks. It's the biggest stretch of the season by far coming in. During the Gabe Alvarez tenure with the SeaWolves, last 2.5 seasons, they have played as well on the road as they have at home and then some. So playing on the road doesn't scare these guys. Jake Holton likes playing in Altoona. I can tell you that.
He pitched there. I feel like he pitched there last year.
Yeah. He did pitch there. But specifically at PNG Field, he hit some homers there last year. I remember asking him about that, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what it is about this ballpark, but I like hitting here." So I'll leave with that nugget. 2 weeks on the road, saying goodbye to my lovely apartment for the next 2 weeks, but I am looking forward to spending some time on the road with these guys and some ballparks that I like calling games at too. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully they could pop some champagne bottles by the time we get to New Jersey.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's such a good time. And that was it to do that. So you can listen to Greg and Sam do the call on Fox Sports 1330 AM on iHeartRadio, or you can go to the SeaWolves website, go listen live if you don't want to bother listening to Altoona. So until
we prefer Sam you hang out with us instead.
Yep.
Well, yeah, Sam will be talking in a few weeks. Probably be back there in July. Good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Good to see you.
Absolutely a pleasure.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too.
You too. All right. So the great Sam Levowitz there joining us there.
Love Sam.
And
lots of good info. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, by the way, somebody was mentioning the Athletic also your statement that Torque wasn't listening to Tigers coach suggestions. Yeah, that's just Torque wasn't. I mean, like I said, there were certain things that Torque didn't want to talk about. He didn't want to talk about it or listen about it. But anyway,
it doesn't mean the Tigers are right either. It doesn't mean what they're telling them is right either. But it's a problem when things aren't going well and there's difference of opinion there. So, and
also, I'm not going to make it a big deal. They hit a home run really far off an 89-mile fastball either. So it's.
It looked like he was trying to toe tap a little bit this weekend.
Yeah. There was a little bit of something going on there. I don't know.
Trying to get some kind of lower half movement. Like he's got to find something to build a little bit of rhythm with. So I don't know, something like that would be advisable. Although there's probably more problems than that, but we'll take it. Hopefully he's working on these things.
And we go right into somebody mentioned Digler. He's good. I mean, he is a top catcher in the International League mentioned here. They split with Iowa. The biggest number that turned out to me that I was like is settling in the groove a little bit is Brian Salmon's his strikeout numbers are like he's sneaking up there. I mean, he's been pretty consistent. And I was a friend of the show, Dr. Barton Smith.
Oh yeah,
he'll occasionally ask me about him, and I was looking at his numbers and I'm like, holy crap! Like it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Ryan Kreidler and Edison are back in the lineup this week as well. The kind of mainstays. And then another number two that stood out was Alex Lang. Looked like he's figured things out. He hasn't walked anybody. But again, the level, gentlemen, I don't know if the level has really anything to do with it, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on his numbers. But
at least he's throwing strikes with the ABS. That's a sign. That's a decent sign, I think. If he could just command the fastball, he'd be fine, and we'll all know it. If he's commanding the fastball, they'll probably call him right up.
Yeah, I imagine we'll see him relatively soon. But what you don't know, and it's kind of the inverse of what with Torkelson is like. Yeah, we know these guys could, do waste, just lay waste to AAA players, and I think it's entirely possible that Lang is getting all these strikeouts without even really throwing any more strikes. It's just his curveball is that nasty that the AAA hitters like I got nothing.
Yeah.
I honestly haven't drilled down to see like how well he's doing, but it is, the stats are the stats. They're good to see. And yeah, I was looking up at Torkelson. I think I don't know if I put it there. Yeah. So only one of his balls in play so far. I think he's got 14 balls in play, maybe 17 so far. Only one of them was on a fastball, harder than 93 miles an hour. And he actually crushed a sinker, but it was an out. It was 96 miles an hour. But yeah, all the damage he's doing right now is on. There was a lefty throwing 86. And then, some like hanging sliders and stuff. But again, just get him down there, get him to the point where he's doing damage again and he feels better about it. And hopefully that'll make something click. I don't know.
Yeah. It seems like taking more pitches and just like getting comfortable doing that again. Cause those last couple of weeks, it wasn't that like his results were any worse than they'd been all season long. It just, he started to look like he didn't have a clue what he was doing or looking for anymore. So just kind of, like mentally stabilizing him for the moment and then hopefully go from there, but probably not going to be a quick turnaround. I don't think.
Yeah. No. And that's not the worst thing in the world,
Yeah.
Take some time.
Yep. Let him soak in it a little bit and think about, what he wants his career to be and whether or not he's going to make some serious changes and all those sorts of things.
So it was funny too. Like, we tweeted out that the announcer said, bring him back up. And everybody thought that we said that. I was like,
oh, yeah.
Read the tweet.
Yeah.
Read the damn tweet. Okay. We didn't say that. The announcer said that. I even put in quotations that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. We're gonna sit with this a while and let Toledo have a really good lineup for a while. I think that lineup's going to do a lot of damage, but it might be fool's gold to some people. Meadows has been swinging a bat well since he went back down there. Young continues to put up really good numbers, but still, a lot of swing and miss in the zone, which is probably the thing we're all looking forward to see cut down. That was kind of like the cue I thought for Malloy, although they needed someone to call up, but he just started driving the ball a little bit more consistently, and they were like, okay, And as we see the discipline is playing so far, even if there's been some awkward swings and him, doing his thing sometimes where, he looks like he's taking good pitches and then having to chase something bad and just put it in play. There's still some of that, but they've been trying to get through to him about being more aggressive early in counts. And I like that the first swing he took in the majors, he like first pitch, hit a 390 foot fly out to right center, settle the nerves down.
Yeah, that was unexpected. Like if you had asked what I thought the most likely scenario would be for Justin Henry Malloy's first pitch to the big leagues, I would have been like, oh, it's a take. Yeah, absolute take. They're just like, no, Stan asked here, he said, is Meadows hitting high velocity? And he is. He is down there. He's hitting for average and power against 94 plus. That was what he did last year though, too, in the big leagues and in the minors. So I'm hoping that there's some real change there, but I don't know.
We're going to do a side-by-side. I've collected a couple of videos of Torkelson. So when I get back from the Great North this week, I was going to put something together for that and see the differences in his swing and start putting that together.
Yeah. The Tigers have to let him work a little bit, so there's no rush on, grinding out every at-bat with them. We're going to see how it goes over the next 3 or 4 weeks, probably.
Yeah. And that, again, there's no rush. I think that the Tigers are doing what they're doing right now and keep it that way. There's no reason to do that.
I wanted to just briefly touch on Ty Madden because we talked about it on our Motor City Metrics show because Yoop actually went to the game and watched him pitch, and it was just interesting to hear his perspective because he's not somebody who's going and paying attention to Ty Madden's outings every week, and he came away like sort of impressed, but also thinking like, yeah, this is probably a reliever because he needed like 80 pitches to get through 3 innings, and his velocity was down by the 3rd inning, and he got 8 strikeouts, only 1 earned run. It's one of his better starts, but also walked 3 guys, and it just wasn't very efficient. And that's kind of the Ty Madden story this year. So, and
then one more thing, Easton Lucas, lefty, riding fastball, mid-90s. Just keep an eye on him. Might be able to work something there.
Yeah, he's on the 49, right? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they put him on the 40-man for that reason. Two bats we mentioned earlier in Cruz and Workman, cue the burner sound effect there. But
tough week for them, yeah. But
yeah, tough week for them. But Jake Holden, who won Player of the Week, congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Mendoza with the
Mendoza.
446 OBP. That's again, this is where he's talking about that pesky player. He reminds me of like just that. I don't want to say I hate. I don't know why people think of when they think of pesky player, they always think of Dustin Pedroia. So I want to find out another analogy not to use but him.
Yeah,
because I don't like Dustin Pedroia. Well, I didn't like him when he played for Boston. That's just because
I thought he was more gritty. Pesky is like you're not really that good. I mean, Dustin Pedroia was almost a Hall of Famer if his knee hadn't imploded on him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I get like Nick Punto vibes, but Punto was really more of like just a good defender who was annoying.
Seth Stevenson is sort of like the core, like a different type of that player who's just like a pain in the ass to put it, in the minor leagues, at the front of your lineup. They're just a big problem, for inexperienced pitchers and catchers.
Yeah. But
yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, nothing. No, yeah. I mean, we talked plenty about Erie. I don't know if there's anything we need to really work on there. It was a solid week for them, but nothing crazy.
I was happy to hear about I was happy for Sam's Melton thoughts. That was good. So
yeah.
So what's ham diced? That was sorry
about that.
That's one of the better.
I probably should have said diced ham, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, ham diced sounds cooler. There is again, the numbers for Roberto Campos are good, but there's not much else going on in West Michigan offensively speaking. The story has been pitching. Carlos Moncada pitching very well. Yulsbear Sanchez, who they just called up from Lakeland, who was hitting 96, 97, is up there. But the offense has been abysmal. And so somebody asked about Max Anderson at third earlier. No, I don't think he has that range.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't know about his arm either. I don't know. Yeah, it's West Michigan is just kind of held together with wire and duct tape right now. They're with Pacheco going to the IL, and it's not like he was having a great season, but they're down Cole Turney, they're down Andrew Jenkins, they're down Pacheco now. They're down a lot of their big bats, and Luke Gold has been super. He's going on 3-4 weeks of a cold spell now. So
more like Luke Cole.
Exactly.
Oh.
Maybe I could have written that. Yeah, and one of the things somebody, I don't know who mentioned it, but I tweeted out from the minor league account was Roberto Campos. We actually mentioned it a couple times before now that he had a terrible week at Peoria, and if you take that week away, and obviously you can't do that, but it was so bad that you wonder if like there's something going on at that stadium where he can't see, because it was like 2 for 23 with no walks and 14 strikeouts.
The allergies got him.
Yeah, it could have been, but up until that point, he was hitting like 280 with decent power this year and a lot of steals. And since that week, he's been hitting like 400 with power. So it's just like that one week that's kind of dragging down his stat line. Otherwise, it would be even better than it is. But he it's kind of like what Sam was talking about. It appears like he's making some real developments there.
Yeah. And I think people have got, he's just been talked about enough where people feel like he's 22 or 3 and he's not,
just turned 21 or is not quite.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple days.
Yeah. Very close to it. So, he's doing very well and ahead of schedule. And, it's a simple thing with him. I mean, obviously there's some chase and things like that, but mostly it's just needs to drive the ball in the air more, and he's doing it. So, and he's pulling the ball. You can tell that he's working on what they're trying to get him to work on. And, if this goes on a little bit longer, you'd think maybe he would start to, get the nod to move up to Erie and see how he can do against the next level. The problem is, of course, the much hated IFA Rule 5, conundrum where I think he's Rule 5 eligible, isn't he?
He was last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not going to be, he's probably not going to be claimed, but you kind of need to figure out really what they think he's going to be and place their bet on that sometime this year again. So yeah, but it's looked pretty good. It's been impressive. He's a physical specimen. And if he figures this out and keeps hitting like this, we're going to be pretty happy, I think. And he's still very young. So, yep, you can just give him some time. He could spend a whole year at Erie, and it wouldn't faze me a bit. So,
yeah, I don't think I think what people are making more of it when they look at like the fact that he's been there a while. But yeah, again, the Tigers signed him at 16 years old, and he had to learn pretty much. He's grown into it. I mean, it's just exactly what it is. And so defensively, I love to see more of him too as well. You really want to make sure, especially in Erie, it's the way the outfield is. If you're going to make that next level, especially got to make sure defense is tight too. So I have a question before we move on to Lakeland. Have you seen this man? Have you seen Christian Santana? Because, ladies and gentlemen, where is Christian Santana?
It's in the land of misfit swings.
Yeah, and the weird one about that is that I'm checking right now, but I still don't think he's been added to like the development list or anything. So yeah, he's just still listed as active. Hasn't played a game since May 12th.
Yeah.
It's been almost a month. Still on the active roster. Hasn't been suspended, not on the restricted list, not on the development list. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe they are just completely tearing him
Is
down.
he in the hot and ready? He's not on the hot and ready list, right, Chris?
No, he's not. He's not on the development list. Like, I would think that's where they would put him. I don't know exactly what's going on, but
or it'd be restricted if there was like a like a family issue or something. He's not sick, or they just put him on the injured list. So
it's a conundrum.
Yeah.
But the
Kristen, wherever you are, please reach out. We all care about you.
I almost want to put a milk cart. I almost put a milk carton graphic together about it earlier. Like I want to, because it's just like nothing. Like even like the Tigers, they joke about. I joke about the hot and ready list because that's something that's been joked out by Ryan Garco. So to see him nowhere at all for a team that, because you're looking at right now, West Michigan could use anybody at this point right now. It like there's the amount of injuries and everything that like people wonder, like with 12 games left in the first half of the season, you're not going to see McGonigal go up to West Michigan until probably the beginning of July. Maybe Max Clark not till August or September even. So I think that wherever Santana is, they have a damn good reason why to keep him hiding away, because the way the injuries are piling up right now at West Michigan, there has to be a good reason. It's the only thing I think, like, just,
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, I mean, it's not like, he's like blocked above him and they're not sure what, or, it's like you could put him up there if you wanted to. And maybe we'll know more when McGonigal and Clark move up, maybe he'll reemerge or something. But, I don't know. The whole thing has been kind of weird.
No, so I want that to happen. Like, look, Fran, we'll talk about Monty here shortly. But, the Flying Tigers.
I did want to. I mean, we talked about diced ham there or whatever, and I just want to point out, like, it does seem like maybe it's a situation like Brandon and Sam were talking about, where maybe Ham has thrown a few too many strikes.
Yeah.
Because he gave up some home runs. He hasn't given up a ton of hard contact this year, but he also struck out 11 and didn't walk anybody. Yeah. So it's not like he's like putting himself in trouble. It was just like, oh, they got him a couple times. So.
Yeah, he's like, just come get me, and then once in a while they will.
Okay, you got me. So I wouldn't worry too much about that sort of relatively rough week for him, but we'll see. Keep an eye on it, I guess.
Yeah, we're still very high in Ham. I'm still very high in Melton.
Yeah,
so don't get high on Melton. Don't get high in Ham, kids.
or it could be the case
Ham
Ham. Maybe Ham's learning a new pitch too.
Yeah,
and, like in one of the things where they're like, okay, for you to get to Erie, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, that's true too. Yep, we never know. There could be something that just got added to the mix that he needs to kind of dial in first or something. But it was one start, so it'll happen to the best of us. Maybe he woke up, and, had a little crick in the neck or something. You never know.
Yeah, maybe he had a Denver omelet that had some diced ham. Okay, enough ham jokes.
He got an unprofessionally made Cuban.
Somewhere. Yeah, and I'm telling you, I've had that happen to me, and it's not pretty.
The best Cuban is about the best thing in the world, but a bad one is not good at all.
No, yeah. I voted ham. I didn't have ham for a decade after that. I'm not serious. I had a Cuban sandwich when I was a kid. When I remember having it, and I was sick to my stomach for like a couple weeks, and swore off ham for a long time. Like a Cuban without ham is like, it's like not natural. But anyway,
like an Italian without pasta.
Yep.
Exactly. Any stereotype you want to go with. So the
hero with no gyro. Okay.
Euro sounds really good about now. Okay, so
I want one.
Yeah,
we're going to get one at 11:30.
are in the driver's seat of getting the first half title, and so they take on Fort Myers this week. Fort Myers is not as prospect heavy as they once were, but they keep rolling along. Castillo's been pitching very well.
Yeah.
And it's the Patrick Lee, who they signed as a free agent minor league signing a few weeks ago with his first career home run. But Andrew Sears, another strong outing. But Minton is the high K winner of the week. I don't know, Chris, if you did you watch any of? I watched a little bit of Castillo start yesterday.
I actually did not see any of Castillo start. I didn't really bear down on many of the pitchers this year or this week, unfortunately, so I couldn't tell you how it was looking. I felt like Jupiter was a really annoying team.
Yeah,
they just kept pecking away all week, and it took. I didn't even put it there, but if people didn't see it, they needed a miracle comeback to win and take the series on Sunday. They were down 6-1 in the ninth. It scored 6 runs to win. And just it was everybody chipping in, and McGonigal got kind of like a chopper over the first baseman to walk it off.
Yeah, they batted around from Clark to McGonigal in that inning, and it was like, Clark set the table, and McGonigal finished the deal.
And that was, I believe, I think that was the game that Clark hit the home run in. Ended up being one of his best games of the year, honestly. So and then that was fun to see, and a great call by Joe Puccio down there, and they're the one interesting thing, and this is. We see this in Florida. It's usually not until later, but it sounds like there's going to be a lot of storms down there this week, and particularly in the Fort Myers area. So that, we might get a couple rainouts or a couple weird doubleheaders that could really affect the standings in a big way. So we'll see. Hoping, because, I don't know. We don't know for sure what the organization is thinking, but we're assuming that they're not going to send anybody up until the first half is over. Yeah, because then they could secure the playoff spot, and that's always fun. And so
it's also a natural, and it's just a natural break where if you're sending McGonigal and Clark up together, they don't have to get there and play the next day. There's that it's just an obvious transitional period. So it makes sense to wait on both of them until then. Do you guys think Clark is going to be ready for that? I mean, I think we all know McGonigal's ready to hit at West Michigan, but
I'm iffy on that one. He has not ever dominated. We talk about they want them to dominate the level, and he's been really steady and solid. I feel like at times he's too passive. Like he'll let 2 pitches go that are like, you could probably crush that man, but I don't know if he's looking for something different or just wants to see more pitches. So I'd like to see a little bit more aggression there, but I don't know. I mean, I guess we do have this idea that they're going to send them both up together, but it wouldn't necessarily stun me if he stays behind for a couple more weeks, and maybe they do that anyway. It's kind of like a little like, hey, you want to be up with your boy? You got to pick it up a notch.
You got to go out on your own, son. Yeah. Prove it. Yeah, that could be. I mean, he hits like a leadoff hitter. Like that's his approach, is like, some kind of classic leadoff hitter. So it was nice to see him turn and really crunch one on Sunday. That was a good aggressive swing on a pitch that, it seemed like he's been taking that kind of thing quite a bit. So I don't know. I could see it either way. I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed at West Michigan, but I think it's fair to say he's not dominating at Lakeland either. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like I've at times I've been like, I don't know about this. But you see enough glimpses where you go, I think it is all here.
Yeah,
it's all there for him. He just needs to. It's like he's kind of feeling his way down a hallway right now, and he's at one point he's going to find it. Somebody asked earlier if we could trade for Sal Frelick, and I'm like, Max Clark might end up being Sal Frelick, which is probably not, what people want, but it's still like a solid average big leaguer, and I think that's probably. I don't want to say that's his floor, because who knows what's going to happen over the next 4 levels, but I feel like that's something that Max Clark could be that would be okay.
Yeah, like a solid, reasonable lower bar, and then you hope for a lot more. Yeah.
So,
there's go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't really have anything else to say. There wasn't again not a whole lot of action down there. They're another team without Briseño, and with Jim Jarvis gone, they don't have a whole lot of. And John Peck is hurt, so they don't have kind of their
Valencia.
Yeah, Valencia came back, and he was a fun story earlier because he's an older catcher in the system. Not older, but older relatively for the level. and was doing really well early in the year, and they got hurt. And fortunately, it seems they've come back really quickly and just right back to form and hitting away. So that helps. But
so apart from the two boys, Clark and McGonigal, it's kind of there's some pretty good arms. Like Rainer Castillo's looking pretty darn good. There we go, perfect. Zach Lee kind of had a little bit of what we were talking about earlier, where he just kind of pumped strikes from the little bit I saw that. Got bombed on twice, but was pretty good. Sears is kind of funky. Mitten has some stuff. Danye Evans has some stuff. Iker Wheezy got some stuff. So there's some interesting pitching to watch down there for sure. But it's still about the three big boys. Hopefully Bryce. We haven't really heard anything about Brycenio, but hopefully it won't be too much longer until there's at least some news about where he's at.
And just, you're hoping the hopefully just put him at first base. The knee, like if it's, I think I saw an injury update about his knee recently, but I'm not gonna. Don't mess with it. Just let it be.
We'll take care. Take care of that knee one way or the other. Whatever it takes to get him back hitting as soon as possible is probably ideal. But they're not going to risk him even playing at first base if they're not sure. It's just too valuable. So it'll probably be a bit.
And just FYI, I did not get a chance to update the FCL slide because they were playing a late game today, and I was waiting for that, and so I didn't get it in there. But the good players down there are doing good stuff. we had a grand slam from Franyarber Montia today, which is I think good timing on his part. And Paul Wilson had his best outing as a pro so far, although he did lose the strike zone again there at the end, but it was, I think, 4 innings, 6 strikeouts, 4 walks, no runs. So
that's an improvement.
That'll do.
Yep. That'll do, donkey.
4 innings, 2 hits, no runs. We got the first U.S. home run from Anibal Salas today, who's another kind of tooled up corner outfielder, and just they went bonkers on. On the Blue
I didn't even
Jays.
see the final score. I just thought it was going well.
16-3.
Yeah, that'll happen to you down there, I guess. Woo.
But and
Juan Hernandez had some good swings.
Yeah, good to see. Juan Hernandez hit a grand slam earlier in the week. That was a weird one because we tweeted about it, and then Lynn Henning was like, "I thought it was a walk-off," and Lynn was actually down there and said, "No, actually, the app was wrong. It was just to tie the game." I'm like, "Well, that's still pretty cool." And then Montia hit a walk-off single a couple innings later. So I don't know. Yeah, some exciting young players down there, at least from what we can tell.
Yep. But I mean, Paul Wilson, Blake Dickerson, Janik Diaz, like those guys have been wild. They've been pretty wild. So there's work to be done there before we really start to get a feel for much more other than what the raw product is, I'd say.
And Jonathan Rogers is a really interesting pitcher because he's had some good outings, and it's weird because he's like, it's a really easy delivery. It's almost like he just kind of slings it, and it's like 89, 90. But you'll see it's like 16 to 20 inches of run. Like when he's pitching, you're like, good Lord, what's going on here? It's part of it's his arm angle, and it's just, I think, when I look at him, I go, he's not throwing very hard. I wonder what they saw in him. And then I go, okay, I think it's that. I think that's unusual, how much run he's getting on this pitch. So
it's kind of freakish.
Yeah.
I see Arjun Nimala struck out 3 times today. So good work. Good work for Wilson and Duke Haybear pitched today too. Okay.
Rogers, I think, has some room to put some.
Yeah, and again, he's only 19 years old, so that's a good point.
Yeah, he still has some time to group with that. So maybe that's what the Tigers plan to do. They beef him up for the Garco plan,
and we should
the old fashioned, just give him a bunch of steaks and stuff like that. So.
And this is with Dunford out, and this is with Rucker out. I mean, it's not bad for their first class, and some of these new IFAs coming in. There's actually a fair bit to watch down there, even with a couple of pretty unfortunate season-ending injuries down there.
And we should mention was it Riley Valentine, the guy that they 18-year-old kid they signed.
Tigers talking about,
he's enormous. He's like 6'7", and like the last thing or maybe 6'9". What was it? And he's up to last I saw was something like he was in the low 90s. He took a gap year out of high school, something like that. This was one of the Torque Moyle special where they were digging into this and finding all this stuff, and I didn't get too far into it, but just another interesting, super large human at a young age that they went down and like, let's give him a try. So and he was assigned to the SEL Tigers just the other day, I think. So we may see him pitch soon.
Oh, cool.
Which will be fun.
I missed that entirely. That's awesome. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. They did something similar with a kid named Dylan McCall, I think 2 years ago, out of Colorado. I was like, who's this high schooler that just randomly signed as a free agent? They didn't like spend any draft money on him. I'm like, what? And so they've done it again. So yeah, it's interesting.
Hey kid, you want to play for free? Come on.
Yes.
Some kids do.
Yeah. Better than working fast food or whatever.
Can you imagine if he doesn't get promoted? Caputo call him a bust. There it is.
Caputo can call him a bust until he gets here. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I was waiting for the Caputo reference, and we didn't get one all night. And there it is towards the end of the night. So that's fine by me. You have to get in. Our listeners have to get in one Caputo blast per time. And I'm fine.
Yeah, they get it. They sneak it in there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was good. I'm halfway tempted to post that Christian Santana thing on Twitter. I was just wondering if I'll get some shit for it, but
maybe.
I think it's fun.
Maybe someone will reach out and figure out where he's at.
Yeah, maybe Lynn Henning will do his magic or something. Because honestly,
the Tigers won't like
really
that. Though. Yeah, he's in an
Tigers wouldn't like that. I might get a stern talking to from Ben.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I guess we'll know when we need to know.
Yeah,
sometimes that's how it goes. Yeah.
So, on that note, thank you so much for listening to the Tiger Minor League Report. Again, we have some great content. The Chris's article on Frombear.
Friend Yerber.
Montilla.
Yeah. Frankie Monty.
Montequilla.
Yerba mate.
What was Frankie Mancakes is what I was calling him earlier.
Yeah, Frankie Mancakes.
Nice.
Frankie Mancakes. More on Frankie Mancakes on our website. There's also Casey Mize article on the website as well. Updated scouting reports and more. And yeah, plenty to talk about. Thursday, I will not be on Thursday's show. I will be traveling back from Milton, the lovely Milton, Ontario. By the way, I had this place called Cafe Americano, Italian place. Phenomenal.
Pretty good.
Really, really good. Really good stuff. So I was warned that Canadian food is similar to English food, where it's bland and not seasoned. I've never had a problem with Canadian food, so I don't know.
No, I eat pretty well when I'm over in Canada, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Let me just plug my boy Jay Markle has a pretty good Hao-Yu Lee article up on our site as well, so you can check that out as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice. Have to look.
Yeah, and also we just on our YouTube Shorts 60-second scouting reports, which have been really getting popular. I had Tiger Mike on Twitter reach out to me, text me today. He's like, for my short ass attention span, I like the 60-second reports, and so I try to space it out a little bit more, and there'll be more of these as we come along. So there's a Roberto Campos one I just got to finish up the script on, and it's just a simple little thing. Go over plus and minuses, and then just go over some offense, like just what stands out about the player in 60 seconds or less. So
yeah, you don't want to get too sweaty. It's very efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because most scouting reports are just like, yeah. And now we make it easy for you.
Yep.
Well, I meant like you can still read our articles on ours. Don't get me wrong. And please also don't forget to donate to the Tiger Minor Report. There's a donate button on there that goes a long way. We're going to be going to West Michigan this weekend. Hopefully, we're long overdue to go out there. So if we'll be out there this weekend.
Get that gun working.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, we got to talk about that off air. I think I got it figured out. So,
sweet.
But yeah, we have to test it at your house. We'll have Harrison throw or something, or I'll throw. And
all right.
Oh, nice.
So on that note, we'll talk to you guys Thursday. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks for watching and listening.